Howdy ho! We're going to talk today about the final step in our project. So this is very exciting. There's going to be a tremendous amount of flexibility, a lot of creativity for you guys on this final last step. At this point, we have a successful model, something that you created and hopefully feel pretty good about. At this point, you should have already taken this model and brought it over into Photopea. Hopefully that is all explained in other videos, so take a look if you are not exactly sure how to do that. So here is my Gorilla model that I started with, and I want to talk you guys through the process that I went through to get from this starting 3D model to a 2D illustration that I'm happy with. You are not necessarily, in this case, going to copy exactly what I've done, okay? I'm going to show you what my thought process was, and it's going to be up to you to decide exactly what you want out of the final project. So this was my first step. This was the first thing that I thought of was I wanted to have the gorilla sort of with like a sky background, sort of a wild kind of looking up. That was my first thought. So that's where I started. And I cut the gorilla out of the background, cut his background out so he was isolated, and then found a background that I wanted to use, like so. I did that for maybe about 5 minutes, and then I decided that I didn't like it. So I ditched that idea, and I switched over to this. Now this was a more fitting background, I thought, a more interesting and fitting subject for fitting and interesting background for the subject that I chose. So I started with this, and my initial model looked like this when I first brought it into Photopea. I used the normal map for the texture / rendering method, which we talked about in another video, and that gave me these really intense colors. Once I did the hue saturation adjustment and a curves adjustment, the color goes back to normal, but I have a nice looking contrasty model. So that's starting to improve. I mean, that's certainly better than this. Then I took another layer and a couple of layers, started putting in some texture effects. So if you look up close, you can see that I've added this fur texture, which again started out from just a picture on the internet. And I used that fur texture as a clipping mask along with blending modes to create a texture that blends in. This is all, again, explained on a previous video. If you go back and watch the Mount Rushmore videos, it explains how to put in a texture and control the blending so it blends in nicely. And then a slight color adjustment, and that's where I left that one. Now, truth is, this wasn't really doing it for me either. Okay, so this was my first attempt. This was the second attempt. And I certainly like this better, but I didn't want to finish this one either. This was not going a direction that I liked. If I wanted to keep working on this, I would have continued developing the textures on the face. Right now, the face is very, not very detailed, so I would have used something with like some cracking textures or something with a little bit of more roughness to it and laid that on top, as well as starting to play with the colors. But you know what? I didn't end up being happy with this image, so I'm going to leave it where it is. And I started thinking, maybe going for realism is not what I want here. Maybe I want to do something a little bit more abstract, a little bit more creative. If you want to go in this direction, it's totally fine, but you have to be the decider. You have to decide exactly what kind of image is going to work best for your needs. So the next thing I did was this one. And this started off as simply two gorillas facing each other, like so. So I actually took two different screenshots, and I really liked this. I liked the way the faces kind of look as they come together in the center. I thought that was a really interesting shape. And I started to think, okay, I've kind of got something here. I like this a lot better than I liked this. I didn't know where I was going to go with this, but once I saw this, I thought, that's a little bit more interesting. So I started playing with this. And the main thing I did was, at this point, I made a bunch of copies and had them sort of shrinking down and receding into the background like so. Okay. I did a few adjustments here and there so that it appears that I've got an army of gorillas facing off against an army of gorillas. Now this I started to like. I'm thinking here in the middle, this is kind of interesting. This is kind of interesting. And I think I could probably develop this more into something pretty good. But I wasn't ready to stick with that. I wanted to keep experimenting and try something else. So the next thing I did was this one. I put all these gorillas together, sort of made like I made a pattern and repeated the gorilla over and over and over. So if you take a look at my layers over here, you'll see all I did was copy the layer over and over and over and over again. You can duplicate any layer by simply right-clicking and saying duplicate layer, and then you can move them around and do whatever you want with them. I also put a hue saturation adjustment that made them look really bright. I wasn't going for realism here. I'm not trying to make these look like real gorillas. I was going for something fun, something light, and kind of funny. So I just tried it, and I liked it. I like this a heck of a lot better than I like this. This was soulless and boring and not super interesting. This I found it made me smile. I liked it, and I thought it was the start of something good. I also kind of thought they looked like gummy bears or gummy gorillas, if you will. So then I did another version that had different colors on each gorilla. So now each gorilla has its own color that is different from all the others. I did this very easily by simply clicking each layer one by one. Let's find a layer. Here's one. In fact, I feel like this is missing a gorilla here. So all I did here was put that back right there. Additional copies, move them over, and then press Command U or Control U, and then just adjusted the hue for each one. So each layer has its own unique adjustment so that they all look different. This I thought was really fun, and this is my favorite one that I made out of the ones that I've shown you so far. This I thought conveyed a really fun idea, and it was just fun, right? I thought this would work well as like a background, or actually I thought the same thing with this one too. I thought this would work well as like a background, or tiled on a phone case or something like that. Anyway, I thought it was fun. And that sort of pushed me in the direction that I wanted to go. And I thought, all right, I'm going to do something completely original, totally unique, using just one image. So this was my final version, if you will. Let me leave my layers up there so you can see it. This image is made up of, I don't know, there's a lot of layers in there at this point. But it's a different angle, as you can see. I was kind of over this same angle, doing the same angle over and over again. This one's a little different. But I wanted just a straight frontal view. I wanted to do a reflection underneath. If I start hiding my layers, you'll see how I built this image. So one by one, as I take away these layers, you'll see that what I started with was just a basic gorilla shape, okay? Which had some adjustments done to make the colors more bold. And each of the layers that I added, some are pictures from the internet, some are things that I drew in Photopea myself. So some of the shapes are drawn in Photopea, like these light beams that you see kind of shooting out from the background. That is a shape that I drew in Photopea. The background image was a star map that I found. Those are like the locations of constellations. I don't know exactly how you would use a star map like that, but I thought it was really cool for my psychedelic gorilla here. I have a layer that has clouds on it. I have another layer that has clouds on it. Actually, I have a few cloud layers here. And then the rest of the layers are all just basic shapes combined together, along with, that's a paisley texture. And there's the background. And there is my star map. So as I start putting the layers back on, you'll see how this was built. So my background layer is a gradient, which is just blue fading into this sort of greenish color, and then another gradient. Actually, it doesn't look like I need that background layer anymore. It's not actually doing anything. Let's delete it. So as I build up these layers, you'll see what's going on. So this layer is simply a circle with a outer glow applied to it. Above that is a texture. Above that is another circle with an outer glow applied to it. Above that is a gradient that's filling in the colors. And as I go up and up and up, you'll see how I built that image one layer at a time. This looks really complex, and to be fair, it is pretty complex. But it's all built one piece at a time. So none of this was done, by clicking one button and it magically happens. I didn't just download the background from the internet. It's an original, unique composition. I'm actually now seeing that I'm not crazy here about this reflection, so I'm gonna make a new reflection. I'm just gonna do that right now while you watch. I just made a selection right up to the area that I wanted, like so. Delete that layer. I'm going to do edit, copy, merged. That's copying all those layers together as if they are a single layer. And then I'm going to edit, paste. You're not going to see anything, but here is my layer. I'm going to just flip it upside down, and there you have my reflected layer, like so. So that looks better, definitely. So that is my finished psychedelic gorilla. Okay, so this is my finished version. I want you to understand that this is what I had to go through to get to this. This was not like I just started on this and this is what I ended up with. I started with this, and I think we can probably agree that my finished version is a heck of a lot more interesting than what I started with. So my first gorilla looks like this. My next version looks like this. It's an improvement, but I still wasn't ready to stick with it. I then went to the gorilla army, which then sort of inspired me to do the wall of gorillas, followed by the multicolored gorillas, and that was the final inspiration for what would become my psychedelic gorilla. So this is my finished result. It took me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 6 different variations before I finally settled on something that I actually liked. So it's really important that you don't give up. Don't stop on your first attempt and say, yeah, that's good enough. Don't be afraid of really branching out and really trying some different things. Let me do something. There we go. That's fun. Now that's festive. Okay, so don't just stop at your first attempt. You really want to keep branching out, see what happens, and see what different kinds of things you can do creatively. Okay, how did I get to this point? It was a slow process, one thing after another, but you should be aware that everything that I've done to this picture are things that you've learned in this class. So I used a combination of layer styles, layer blending modes, clipping masks, all combined together. So the things that we did on Mount Rushmore, the things that we did on the Photoshop Pizza project, and then finally the things that we're going to do in Sculpt GL, all those things come together to make something a lot more interesting than what we started with. So I'm going to cut it off there. If you have any ideas, if you have any things that you might want to try, maybe an image that you found online that you thought was really cool, or you want to ask, hey, how can I make something like this? Send me a message, an email, or a message through Classroom. Email works better than the Classroom messages because I see those right away. But by all means, send me a message if you have any questions, or if you think that you want to try something but are not quite sure how to do it. Just ask and I can help you. With that said, good luck. Don't be afraid to try different things. And like I said, whatever you do, don't stop on your first attempt. Keep going, keep it up, and your design will continue to evolve and continue to improve. Okay? Good luck.